Welcome to Print Your Games, a podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for tabletop gamers. I'm your host, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Christen, also known as Seventh Mastery nowadays.
Wait, what?
What?
Why did you change that up? What's up?
Oh, well, I still do Lost Spheres. That's still a thing. But I am on the TikToks doing gaming content on there and talking about role-playing games and 3D printing and all that stuff there. So that is a new thing. Lost Spheres is not going anywhere, but it's probably going to be more of a constant stream of interesting things and information probably on that. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe I will hang my head in shame in a month and delete it.
I doubt that will happen.
No.
That's cool. Actually,
it's a great community over there. I can't tell you how much fun I've been having the last few days. So
yeah, let's toss us some links so we can put them in the show notes so people can find you.
We'll do. Yep.
I have been less busy on things than the TikToks. So what's some topics you've already covered
on TikTok? Wow, lots of stuff. I've been trying to feature lots of 5e third-party content because not a lot of people talk about it. Been talking a lot about game mastering advice and player behavioral advice and how to jive better with your gaming group. There's also just goofy TikTok stuff. I've been doing AI generated art assets. Space hippos is my current fixation. So
I wonder why space hippos are
space hippos. If you're in the video, you can see something lurking behind my back, but it's not what we're here to talk about. So it's not being talked about.
I had to put space hamsters,
space hippos. There's space everything. It's great. And space bugs, which I adore. And we'll get back to space bugs later in this episode, but stay tuned. So what have you been doing?
So I got to play, one of the things that I've done lately is I actually went to a Games Workshop store, which, involved a drive. To be fair, this happened right before Gen Con. I just haven't talked about it on the show yet.
Okay.
Literally a couple of days before Gen Con trip, when I got stranded outside of my house because of the flooding in eastern Kentucky that hit that maybe you heard about.
I did. In fact, I was worried you were under the level, but you weren't.
Yeah. So I was outside of my house at the time on an away trip for business. Specifically, I had to go take the FAA's remote pilot exam so that I could officially fly drones commercially.
That's cool.
Because, for videography and video work and stuff like that. And because, hey, if I can't even use drone footage on my YouTube channel because it's monetized, and the FAA absolutely does check on that.
Oh, fascinating. I just figured you'd really got into that miniature photography class from Gen Con and you were getting some aerial shots now.
Oh, no. Yeah. Just build the entirety of Minas Tirith like they're doing over on the Zorpazorp, and then just do some flyovers.
Fly with your drone.
Which is silly because it's the one time when I could just hold the Sony and just literally just move my hand across it and it would look like an aerial shot.
Yeah. That's cool.
We need to start 3D printing at bigger scales so that I need a drone. But no, so I got stranded outside my house, had to spend a few days in the city. And so I went to a Games Workshop and then was like, hey, you got a paint booth set up here with demo paints. Is that new washes and contrast?
Really?
Yes. So I got to play with the new
You held this out on me. You did not tell me about that. Oh, man.
Sorry.
I've heard it's way better.
It is way better. The new contrast paints, they had them all out on display, and they had a whole bunch of primed Space Marines for me to paint on.
Oh, you just got to just go at it, huh?
Yeah, they just whatever, man. They had some brushes, everything ready to go. And I was the only one in the store, and the dude was super friendly. This is the Lexington Games Workshop store. I guess it's called the Lexington Warhammer store.
Yes, they say Warhammer now.
Yeah. Good to play those Warhammers.
But lots of that on the TikToks too, by the way. It's getting me hungry to paint some stuff, some space bugs.
But they had all the new paints ready to go and all the new washes. And so I got to play with them all. And I will tell you, the new contrast paint, much better formula than the original contrast paints. A
Sticky.
lot less sticky and
Yeah.
goopy. I'm not finding that like infinite goop. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yes, I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah. I'm not having the infinite goop situation. Uh, man, my camera just will not stay on my face for
It
some
loves your
reason.
light bulb so much. It does.
I know. I'm going to have to switch this over to manual somehow, and I do not know why it thinks that it wants to focus on my light bulb
At
behind
least
my
your
head
camera's
in the corner.
cool enough to focus. Mine just is sitting there, you know.
Audio listeners deeply confused by the last few
Yeah.
minutes.
We can just
Yeah.
move on.
Sorry. So sorry, our audio listeners.
So
Anyway,
the burning question
yeah.
is: it equal or better than speed paint?
It feels almost exactly like I was painting with speed paint.
Mm-hmm. That was my curiosity.
Yeah. For most of the colors, that was definitely it. Like they had some really cool, vibrant colors that I absolutely love.
I
Kill
heard
this camera.
the pigment dispersion is amazing. I've heard this. So I'm
Sorry.
excited to get my hands on them still, if not just for the colors, you know. Like I still
Mm-hmm.
use, like, as much as I have moved towards speed paint for a lot of my like squads and
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Right.
I am definitely all about like, as it was it Necron Glow or whatever it is, the technical. It's this bright eerie green. It was on those experimental
Oh,
Lost Souls
okay.
minis I was showing you, but I love it anyway.
Yeah. And I think that like the new stuff is like it's really like they had like really cool bright magenta, and of course the one that everybody on the YouTubes is geeking out about, the yellows.
Yeah, yeah.
I got iron no the fist yellow people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry. I am bad at my GW sometime, but I
I
got
will never be able to
the
tell
yellow
your.
Space Marines.
I can't tell Space Marines apart. They're all the same in my crunchy carapace jaws,
Yeah.
melting under my acid sprays. It's fine.
Right. So I got the yellow paint, and it is glorious. It is every bit as glorious as they're talking about on the thing. Like just taking, I have a white Space Marine, and I have the yellow, and then one smooth coat, and a perfectly saturated, smooth, brushless stroke yellow is across my Space Marine. This
Mm.
one paint is a must to have in every collection. I have honestly, it is
I was
the
about to say
best
that
paint in the range.
the Zealot yellow's pretty good, but I did still see some
Mhm.
weird
Mhm.
layering stuff when
Yeah,
I was
no,
using
no,
it from the speed paints.
no,
So
absolutely not. This is they have it comes in a few different flavors. Like Bad Moon Yellow is also good, but any one of these three new yellows is just the perfect paint to have in your collection. Go get one, even if it is $8 a bottle. Ouch. But like just to do my Space Wolf shoulder pads for my sister's kill team
mm-hmm.
is just like even using Pro Acryl, which has an amazing yellow.
Oh
It still
yeah.
takes me 2 or 3 coats to get a nice smooth finish. This stuff, one brush stroke and I'm done. And it's
Wow.
perfect. And then I got to play with the new washes.
Mm.
And the new washes are glorious.
Cool.
So what they do that I love is they do not stain the flat raised surfaces anywhere near as much as they used to. So this is might be a downside for some people that really love dirtying their things up with the
Okay.
washes. You'll have to put multiple layers on to get that same effect now. But like I took Nuln Oil and I
Mm-hmm.
took that yellow Space Marine and I doused it with Nuln Oil.
And it
And
looked
what I
okay.
got, it looked like I panel lined it.
Really?
Yeah, it's like perfect, like all the raised panels, nothing. Inside all the panel lines, nice, smooth, dark gray lines.
Mm.
And it was just like, this is, I love it so much. So I ended up buying I ended up buying 5 paints while I was there. The yellow contrast
Mm-hmm.
paint,
Mm-hmm.
Iron Hands yellow, that's the one.
Okay.
And I got the yellow contrast paint, and I got the Holy Four washes: Nuln Oil, Agrax Earthshade, Reikland Flesh Shade, and Seraphim Sepia.
Very cool. I am excited to see results. And I should probably start sniffing around for them here. I've been so focused on other stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
like I haven't even set up my Neptune yet. I need to do that still.
Mine's still in my box too, mainly
Yeah.
because like it came, and then I was like, and then I have to travel, and then I have to
Right.
Gen Con.
Right. Yes,
Yeah,
James, I think you're absolutely right. James in chat says it sounds like they heard the footsteps of the competitors and stepped up their game. I think they had to.
yeah, they had to.
They had to because the price point and everything, like
Mhm.
they have such a premium that they needed to adapt because otherwise
Right.
it would have.
Like I ended up buying. I like the army painter washes a ton, even as is, and ironically now, the army painter is what I'm going to have to reach for when I want that dark stain everything effect,
Mm-hmm.
instead of the GW stuff that I used to rely on for that. Because I like the army painter stuff because they have a dark purple, they have a dark blue, they have a red, they have a green. It's just all the different colors, and now GW does too because they massively increased the wash line.
Right. Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, the Army Painter speed paints were better than the contrast paints, even though I do have the complete collection of both. I ended up hardly using the contrast paint, even though I paid so much more for it.
Well, you know my problem with it. Like
Hmm.
I had about half of the contrast, but
Hmm.
then half of that half was on my table because I knocked them over all the time.
Oh no!
Even with I finally got one of those the GW official like little
Right.
like weighted thing, and I
Hmm.
still it holds 3 paints. I do not. I cannot just work with 3 paints, so I was switching
I
out, and I'm
I
just
never do that, but I took my Agrax Earthshade to my every Wednesday. I don't do go every Wednesday, but every Wednesday there's a paint night with a few of my buds. And I went up there just this past Wednesday, or a couple of Wednesdays ago, actually, the last time they had it because Gen Con happened.
Mhm.
And they spilled my Earthshade. When I was like, "Can I borrow that?" I'm like, "Sure." And then my Earthshade,
No.
then thunk, glug 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 glug, half like more than half the bottle ended up on the table, and I'm like, "Wow, it really does happen." But I
Yes.
resisted taking a photo and tweeting it. I resisted it.
I'll tell you, as my what is it,
Hmm.
Druchii purple and my
Hmm.
Earthshade and many of my green tones, yeah, like rainbow elves been slaughtered on my tables. It's just everywhere. So, anywho,
Yes. So today's episode is not about paints. We just
no,
wanted to get that in before we started.
but it is brightly colored and spectacular.
That is awesome. I ended up buying this book after you proposed this. So we are going to be talking about Journey Through the Radiant Citadel. Did I get the title right?
Journeys, yeah, journeys through
Journeys
the
Through the
radiant.
Radiant Citadel,
Yes.
a new adventure book from for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Tell us a little bit about what this is and why it excited you.
Lots and lots of reasons. It's a collection of adventures drawn from multiple um, cultural traditions throughout the entire world here, but it is still second world fantasy. So it's just inspired by, but the very diverse creative team put this together. It's amazing. It's so
Mhm.
flavorful and just it really cool. But of course, it's also kind of plainer. And if you know me, I love plainer stuff. But to my dismay, but also happiness for most people's usability, every single adventure also has advice how to place it in the Forgotten Realms, and usually Greyhawk, though sometimes Miss Stara. So if you're OG, you could even take it back there. But because of that guidance, you could take it and port it into just about any similar setting if you have your own world at home or whatever. But the Radiant Citadel, basically, in the ancient history of this place, 27 cultures converged into the ethereal plane and made a shared point of learning and cultural exchange. And it's this
Okay.
big magical diamond thing called the auroral diamond, and it has this like crust of like fossilized matter on it. It's kind of unclear what that is, but then they kind of burrow it into it, and there's buildings and everything. There's a city, whatever, kind of around it, and then each culture had their own. I think they call them Concord jewels, and they're basically planar spelljammers, just like I have in my setting, but they're jewels, and they go. Each one of them is tuned to a specific society, and they go back and forth. And so, like for instance, if your characters were on X world doing X thing, they might find a Concord jewel, and it could take them to the setting right away. It plane shifts back and through to the ethereal, navigates right to the city. So basically, super like point A, point B. Like if you're familiar with video games, it's like a travel map, sort of situation where you go to the cool exotic location and then it shoots you back out to one of the various very detailed, lavishly detailed worlds. And I would run this. You can, if you took all that Forgotten Realms advice, you could like smash it all into Forgotten Realms if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But really, each one of them has a little mini gazetteer at the back, and they kind of seed out the idea of a region of some world. And you could actually play this with, there's 13 different adventures, I believe, and you could have 13 different worlds that you could have and have a very broad, cool setting that is still contained because it all is connected by this citadel. Mm-hmm. And the citadel is just, massively collaborative. It has these crystalline creatures that are the combined lore of each different contributing world. And one thing I think that's really cool that they did is they did leave several of those worlds undefined. So the worlds the adventures happen in, they have their details and their leaders and everything, the way it connects to the citadel. But then there's definitely room for the dungeon master to customize it and like add their own content. So very, very cool. You could do a whole like campaign from 1st to at least 14th level. I think you could go further than that with the premise very easily. And it would easily attach to any campaign setting, any like Planescape, or that thing behind me, Spelljammer. So much potential and just so much rich flavor.
And I imagine that an adventure that's going through 13 different worlds inspired from cultures all over our world, it's going to be a little bit difficult to find, off the shelf models to support and play this. Like I'm not going to be able to go in my Lord of the Rings 5,000 miniature collection and populate this, am I?
No, probably not. And specifically because they really made use, if you're familiar with the term of reskinning monsters, I know you are. I don't know if our listeners are. But they reskin a lot of monsters. So you can actually run this with the new monsters that are in the book and a monster manual, pretty much. Straight up. You don't have to like go pawing through. And I was really surprised because to have this really cool cosmopolitan, multiplanar, multi-world setting, to really, you can run this with your core 3 books and this, and it will still feel so unique and so cool and fun because they do things like, reskin, a lizard into something else or whatever. Like there's a part where you're on a chase to find little glowworm caterpillars or giant caterpillars, and they just use lizard stats and just say they're the same as the lizard stats, but it's caterpillar, and then you don't deal with that.
That doesn't do much. Like that's great for running it with the stats in the monster manual, but that I'm not going to want to put a lizard on the table. I'm going to want to put a giant caterpillar.
Exactly, and this is where things get crazy because there's so many, unique swap outs that they do. We'll talk about one of them when we get to the first adventure that I just adore it because you basically have to beat up dinner, and it's just super fun, but. I think we want to go through some of the general things that I would just recommend unique because they show up in multiples.
Right. So what you've done is you've put together a resource of this gigantic list of models throughout the adventure and sources for printable objects that will help, right?
Right.
And
predominantly we will be
making this list available for people to access after the show. So if you're listening to us on the podcast or you're watching it and you were like, ooh, I need to get some of these things, we will have the full list with all the links available after the show for you all to get hold of.
Absolutely. Should we dive in?
Sure. You said you've got a general list, so these are frequent appearances, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say probably every other module has its own bandits or fighters, whatever. The place itself has mages and priests. So you're going to want your general array. If you really want to go above and beyond, I would actually look for maybe someone's Patreon release that matches a similar inspiration culture. If you wanted to like really go crazy and have like all of those different options, but your general run of the mill adventurer minis are probably going to work for most of those things. So you're definitely going to need some undead things. You're going to need wraiths. You're going to need ghouls. They show up multiple times. Then you're going to need multiple aboleths.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know, at one point, Paizo put on the whiteboard in the design room, no more aboleths, right?
Well, yeah, apparently some of that energy had to go somewhere in the universe. So this is my first recommend, and this is why I have different focuses for each of these. Sometimes it's price point,
Mm-hmm.
because you know me, I'm always trying to find a deal. But the aboleths, actually, people love to make aboleth models that are just squirrely and swirly and like a whole bunch of tentacles and swishes and whatever. And I have to thank Scott at Comet Lord. He's kind of one of the first ones I want to mention, because the model is huge and impressive, but it's vertical. It's actually rearing up, rising up out of the water. It's got its big three eyes and its, flailing tentacles and the swoosh of the goo, because of course aboleths just fling goo everywhere and mutate people with it. But this thing is vertical, and that's very important because a lot of these locations and maps are in caves or little underground coves or whatever. And, fighting when you have like, I remember going to PaizoCon years back, and I was playtesting a module I had written, and I had an aboleth in it. And the only cool aboleth mini I could find at the time was like long. It was like 5 inches long. And so it was supposed to be a large. Yes. Yeah. And I think it was Reaper maybe.
They had D&D put one out that was like this amazing cool aboleth jumping from water and metallic paint, and it's awesome. Yeah, but like you can't close to its front; it hangs off its base so much.
Right, and so it's just so unwieldy, and so that's one of the considerations. It's in a lot of these. A lot of the adventures are in tight quarters, and you're going to have a problem, especially if you're using 3D printed terrain, or any 3D terrain. If you've got like tiles that are 3D, you're gonna want something that can stand up like that and actually just kind of be in its space. And one thing I would say about most of the 5e stuff that I've seen, it gets like suggestive. Like dragons are always now like they're just ridiculously huge, and they barely fit onto their bases, let alone where you need to put them. So there's also an epic one, and I'm going to just throw this out. If you're confused about any recommendation I have, Epic almost always had a second possibility.
It's because they make like 120 minis a month.
I can't, like, it's funny because we really haven't ever interacted with them on the show, but I love them. It's such a huge value. They give you a whole set later. So Epic, and picking up some of those, I might recommend just as a general habit if you're going to be building a Dungeons and Dragons library. But the Epic one's also got good verticality, if you see that there.
Yeah, this one is like less like a giant fish and more like a bundle of tentacles and malice.
Right. Yes, absolutely. It kind of curls up. I like Scott, and the Epic sculpt both have like a really good curvature. It's very animate, right? They look like they are leaping up out of the water, doing the thing, fighting you, and I dig that.
And for any of our listeners who doesn't know what an aboleth is, because it's not a super common monster that you will fight. It's really common in Pathfinder adventures a lot, but other than that, they're basically like psychic evil fish that like to be masterminds of things.
And they can wrap you in goo and force you to live in the water with them. So even if you resist their psychic powers, your skin changes and you are stuck forever. That's the cast and play one. Again, cast and play, I love that it's kind of got its tentacles really close to its body like that. So it just, if you're hearing
it, cast and play's earliest models.
It is, but
you can tell.
Yeah, it's not quite as detailed, I think, but it's still got that, the three eyes and the ridginess and whatever, and it's coming out of the water, but it's really tight and kind of got that, again, kind of frenetic curve, like it's diving at you. I dig it. But
and this one's $2.
Right, which is one of the things. I tried to put like a value choice if I could on some of these ones you're going to have. And if you're going to run Radiant Citadel, Journeys to the Radiant Citadel all the way, you're going to have more than one aboleth. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil it.
You're going to need more than one aboleth. Like, is there like an upper limit? Like, how many aboleths should I print to be ready? Like, what's the biggest number of aboleths?
If you want your aboleths to look different, I would say at least 3.
Okay. And this is where we're going to say we're going to be mentioning specific monsters and sometimes the types of locations that you would want to print for. So there's going to be some mild spoilers in this episode talk. We will not be discussing story beats or plot points or more than that. So we will
other
mainly
than locations
be talking about
and monsters. We won't do it.
Yeah. Things you need to know as a GM if you're getting ready to run this game.
Yep. And some spoiler alert, something does require a little bit of planning But fortunately, it's not until I want to say like 10th or 11th levels, so you don't have to worry about it quite yet. But to get the best fig for the mini, for that printed, you're going to have to invest something, and I'll explain it in a second. But we talked about the aboleth. You're also going to want hags.
We have a comment from the Danigma machine who says, with people now printing dungeons with walls, it's much more user-friendly if many designs occupy the space vertically from their base only.
Absolutely.
Hallelujah. Yeah,
absolutely. That's why you will hear me say verticality at least 2 more times in this, maybe more.
Yeah. And also, like, as a wargamer too, I appreciate that, because it's really hard to rank up models when they're hanging off their base in every different direction.
Amen.
I do not want to play like 20 minutes of miniature tentacle Tetris when I'm just trying to get my regiment of elves done.
Yeah,
dark elves
same
specifically.
Thing with flying minis and their wings just going everywhere, and it's like you're hitting into each other. I mean, it can be cool if you can pose it, but I don't want to do that if I'm trying to get through 4 or 5 combat encounters in a game night. I don't want time for that. So hags, right?
Oh dear. Okay.
At the
my
very
mini
least,
factory had a hiccup there for a second. I was worried.
Okay. Well, yeah, that'd be bad. At the very least, you're going to need a sea hag and a night hag. There are suggestions of other hags that you may encounter, it being kind of a planar thing and them kind of being in that kind of cosmology that they present as bad guys more than once. It would just be good to have. They're useful minis. I think this is the best value. You get some very versatile minis for different types of hags that you could just paint slightly different and get a lot of mileage out of them.
So again, you're recommending the epic set, and it's these like really hunchbacked hags with stuff growing out of them. One of them has a like 2-foot long tongue that is cleaning out a skull.
And she has like a big deer skull thing.
Yeah, these are very horrific, monsterish kind of hag monsters.
I kind of apologize in advance to our listeners and viewers, because I did most of these selections, so they tend to lean towards the horrific and awful, stylistically, because that's usually where I go for printing monsters. So there are, however, some startlingly cute monsters we will get into. Okay. So, and that is something about it. As you move through this, you might need to do some adjustments to your own taste to get the style consistent. Right. Or just have a cute night and a not cute night. I don't know.
And this is also a great call to action to our listeners. If you know of any better or ones you're more a fan of to fit some of these roles, do let us know in the comments.
Oh yeah,
or by emailing us, because that would be wonderful. Like if we can just get like a great list of all the cool options available for this set of adventures, that would be wonderful.
That'd be cool. And just as a quick aside, there are so many cool monsters in these adventures. I am not going to be able to cover them all and finish this in an hour. So there's going to be stuff you don't hear about. But
James in chat says, "Hey, she was hungry."
Yeah, cleaning out that skull, getting every little morsel of matter.
Okay. All right. So for the first adventure, Salted Legacy, I'm imagining this is sea-based.
It's actually takes place in a market. So if you have like a market, tile set or cast and play, something like that. I also recommend if you have a prop for beans, like piles of beans, it's relevant.
Can I just get a bunch of beans and glue them to a base?
Those would be really big beans. But they are actually combat interactive kind of.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say this is the adventures. It is you beat up dinner, in my opinion.
Do you have a recommendation of an STL of combat beans?
I don't. I was looking for, it's a pile of beans. You want like a pile of beans. But anyway,
okay.
if a
this is an opportunity out there for
STL I'm designer. Sure somewhere in maybe cast and play that there's a like thing. I found some piles of apples. But I really looked for beans yesterday, and I just was coming up blank. Okay. But
so first monster you're suggesting is giant thermal shrimp.
Yes. So in one of the monsters that they bring in, they call it the jagged koi prawn, and you beat up giant prawns to prepare for the feast, right? It's so you fight dinner, and the bean things coming in there too.
Okay,
But
careful not
yeah,
to do plot spoilers.
yeah, that's what. Sorry. The prawn though, is just such a weird thing, right? Like I looked everywhere for like an actual prawn. This, and I think Printed Obsession also had a fairly decent one, but this is, to me, it looks menacing. Yet it's got enough that you could actually paint it. These are supposed to be very beautiful creatures. They're like,
Mhm.
like a koi pond, but they're shrimp and they're massive, and you
My
fight them.
painting suggestion then would be spray paint it with metallics or airbrush it all metallic, and then like do lots of translucent inks to get really pretty rainbow colors on the shells.
That would be cool. That would be cool. I imagine if you do all this stuff and paint it up and print it up and paint it up well, this would be such a pretty looking like setup for like an event, like a weekend of gaming or something.
So Gibersol is wanting to know, are the beans we're talking about like the prime beef minis over on Colts?
I'm not sure. They are beans, and you hurt them.
Prime beef models on Colts are Space Marines.
Oh, okay.
So not Space Marines then.
Not Space Marines, but you could beat a Space Marine if you needed to, I suppose. But yeah, Elden Ring, huh? Has prawns.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And there's so much. Elden Ring has so many STL files available for it that are inspired by Elden Ring to recreate a lot of that game. So that's great. Also, very weird goats. If you need very weird goats that cartwheel, thank Elden Ring.
Okay. Very weird cartwheeling goats. All right.
Yeah. You would like Elden Ring. I'm surprised you haven't played it.
I am a filthy casual. There, I've said it out loud on record.
Okay, then you can handle Elden Ring.
I don't know. I've heard like, every Souls-like game that I play is basically made to make me like crumble in shame inside. So I don't know, but it's got a lot of positive feedback from people I know and respect. So I really probably should. But yet again, I usually go and buy those games a few years later. Like I just barely played Diablo 3 and it's been out for how long? Anyway.
All right, so we're coming up on half an hour, so I think it's best that we focus on the most interesting and hardest to find ones.
Okay, so
or else we're not going to get through the list.
I was worried. You would be surprised how many are getting cut. The last thing, though, in the first adventure is windlings.
Okay,
and windlings are a little fey creature. To me, they kind of look like bat-winged lemurs, maybe. It's really hard to find something quite right, and I kind of had a couple suggestions for them.
So this is the cover monster.
What's that?
This is the monster on the cover.
It is on the standard cover, yes. I have the fancy one because I'm extra.
Okay. So it is like this super cute, like
that is
thing.
Exactly the thing. Yes,
and I love it to pieces. It's like it looks like a little fruit bat.
Yeah, maybe, but it's
a sky puppy.
It's a fae, so whatever. But yeah, it is probably one of the 3 hardest things I think to find a good mini for. We had a couple ideas though. I believe role playing in miniatures has a free model of a winged monkey. That is super
that's
cute.
A different take. I like it.
It's
and
cute.
This is absolutely the most adorable thing.
It is adorable. Like I said, be warned. Much cuteness. That was pretty close. Again, it's got feathered wings. I don't know, but you could get it there. I think if you really wanted to go the extra mile, you could probably kit bash some new wings onto it.
Okay.
Also, there is a forest method, is what they called it. That was really close as well, and I want to say that was from White Werewolf, maybe.
White Werewolf Tavern.
And I think it's actually pretty good, but again, the wings are off. They're buggy wings. They don't have tails, but I think it looks pretty cute. Otherwise, it's kind of in that lane. So, all right, we'll move on because you are right. We are going to not have enough time if I'm not staying focused. The next module adventure is called Written in Blood, I believe. This, in my opinion, is the best one-shot. If you just want to do one thing out of this book and run an event, it's got very staple monsters in it, aside from 2 things.
Okay. What are those 2 things?
Crawling claws which I had a pretty affordable little setup of claws, I think in the links. But a crawling claw is just an undead hand to me who's listening. So just imagine kind of like a wrapped, severed hand. Yeah, it crawls. It's like Thing from the Addams Family. Absolutely. Yeah. And then you have the Soul Shaker, which is its like big, angry family reunion sized version. And it is a big monster made of hands. And it is so weird and awful looking that I tried to find some big monsters made of hands. And I think I did pretty good. That is a big monster made of hands. It's from Rocket Peg, I believe, from their Dart.
Yeah. So if it's a T-Rex person made of hands,
grabbing each other and pulling all over
with a sphincter mouth. That's disturbing.
Yes. The other one is slightly less disturbing, but yes, this one's just a guy made of hands pulling against each other. It looks like they're struggling. It's kind of that Hell Sandman thing we were talking about. But the other one is I believe it's a toothed maw as a cloak around a bunch of hands. Yes, somebody does need a pedicure, James. But you wait till you see this other one. It's a big. For anybody listening to us, it's
the Frighteners, but worse.
But worse. It is a mod cloak with just arms exploding out of it. So when you fight this monster and chop up
these nightmare monsters, why do you bring these into my life, Christen?
When you fight this and start killing it, its hands fall off and turn into crawling claws, more of them. So like
you the more you fight it, the worse it gets.
Yes, absolutely. So that is
lovely.
That one, the ones I would stick with. Moving on to the 4th level module, which is Fiend of Hollow Mine. You need obviously some mine terrain at the end of it. It has a very unique monster, and honestly, you could probably use an owlbear for it. But if you use an owlbear for it, you'd probably want to paint it funky because it is emaciated and sickly. They're actually demons, but they're like owl type demons that are like kind of emaciated. There are pronunciation guides in this book. I highly recommend using them. I cannot do them all well myself, and I probably shouldn't try to do this one at all. I'm not going to. It's I'm not going to do it. Okay. But there's a really good pronunciation book in the book. Unfortunately, I have my show notes. I don't have the book sitting in front of me.
It looks like a rock with an owl head.
Yeah, kind of. It is a bird demon, so maybe it's I don't know, a distant cousin. They're probably like that in the Abyss.
We have a comment from P&D Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Had the Artisan Guild Tarask fail when printing the arm, and it actually turned out to be the ultimate crawling hand wall master style mini. Sometimes worth it to keep those failures. Nice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I keep failures for bits all the time.
Okay, so what did you find as a horrific owl monster?
Well, again, you kind of have some acute option, and I think the Great Grimoire had a set of like little owl spirits.
These are too cute for the job.
Look at the one on the left
for the job.
The one on the left. So if you're listening, there is one on the left that is kind of crawling under its cloak. If you paint that and it's kind of sagging, you could make it sad and sickly, and it would get there, I think. But if you are one of our esteemed STL creator community who's listening and want to make a much more sickly, scary owl monster, Scott, or anybody else who feels challenged, do it, please, because it needs a better fit. I also picked a really kind of thinner looking owlbear. Again,
the Fodesmint one.
Yeah, and it's really affordable. Just a good solid little owlbear anyway. But if you painted him up, made him look sick, put some Nuln oil on him, you could get him emaciated and sick looking. So, but the good news is that's it for that. Everything else is really staple in it. It's one of the ones that like you really could just kind of run with mostly stuff you already have.
Okay.
And it's 3rd level, which is a great pickup level for people to just kind of have little quick characters.
Right. So come on, Christen, show me a weird thing that I can only find with 3D printing.
A weird thing? Well, this next one's not that either. Are we skipping? Because this one
we do need to skip and go focus on the cool things.
Well,
focus on the cool things.
The only thing I'm going to say about Wages of Ice is it's got dancing diva assassins in it. Okay. And there are some great dancer, like blade dancery type things with feathers and whatever. I just recommend go to Arian S Studios page. beautiful like feather dancers with their little like knives that they pull out and attack, assassinate people. That's a big dramatic moment in this mod in that adventure. So we'll move on from that one. Same thing with Sins of the Elders. It's a great little setup, but you need gargoyles for it, and those aren't that hard to find. And you need a lot of Dragonborn because the culture it happens in is predominantly Dragonborn.
Okay.
But
this is a good thing because there are scarce few Dragonborn you can go buy at a store, and they're almost always geared towards PC choices because that's usually the market for that.
Yep.
And oh my gosh, there's so many great Arian Studios. There's a bunch of them.
Yep.
Who else does Dragonborn really good? Battle
Daybreak
has like
Daybreak.
Yeah.
Bite the Bullet did one.
Artisan Guild did a really cool dragon set.
Yep.
A while ago, with, like they ride drakes, and that's cool.
Super available, but it is something I think that would be really good to 3D print and save you some cash trying to track down the like pre-paints that are out there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they're like $20 a piece at Gen Con. It was stupid.
It's crazy. So we'll move on to the 7th level adventure, Gold for Fools and Princes. I'm just going to say it. I was stunned to find out that this monster, if you are someone who's played Dungeons & Dragons or other similar games for some period of time, the Arumbarax, also known as the Golden Gorger, is such a classic, terrifying thing. It is a multi-limbed, it's a long badger instead of a long bear, Param, and it is metallic because it eats gold and treasure, and it is horrifying. It's got tons of attacks, and I have had the personal distinction of crawling into a warren with them where we were squeezing and penalized on our ACs, and these things are vicious, and they'll like pile up on you, but they look like a big, like, imagine a badger centipede is what we're looking at here. They are teeth and legs and golden fur, and they eat your treasure. So like, yeah. But this is such a old classic D&D monster, and that 5e did not get it till July of 2022 stuns me. And I'm very happy that this is out there again. And I think the recommendation I had was a value recommendation because it's very affordable.
So this is the monster we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. It is indeed a long weasel, a very fuzzy long weasel.
Yes, that one looks even more dog-like. I think the one from Yash, I am not pronouncing things well.
Yoshinoku?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, Yasashi Kojin Studios. Oh yeah. Oh, this is so cool. It's a long weasel.
It is a long weasel.
It's exactly the model.
It is exactly the monster. Yes. And it is, yeah. This is a classic thing if you've been playing D&D a long time. Like, or if you're one of the unique individuals who is new to, like, 5e is your first edition, but you have a grognard in your group, when you bust out that many and it's all painted gold and, like, sparkly, they're going to freak out. That's all I'm going to say.
And also, big shout out to Yasashi Kojin Studios because they have an amazing selection of very high quality STLs that they just give out for free. They do charge for the pre-supported versions, but the non-pre-supported versions are usually available for free. They're on My Mini Factory, and they're fantastic. They got some really cool owlbear cubs too.
Speaking of cool and speaking of cute, Trail of Destruction presents a problem because the big monster in it, the big new monster, is Tlexotl, like an axolotl. Tlexotl. Anyway, it is a big giant salamander made of magma.
Okay.
But it has the little frilly neck things and everything. And if you look at most axolotls, they are adorable.
Oh, it's an adorable thing that's going to TPK us.
Yeah, you're going to have to blow that up to huge size, though. So I don't know. Again, if a creator can make like a scarier one than that, you got an option that could get some eyes on. But yeah, this thing is super adorable. Even in its big, scary magma form in the book art, it's still super cute. Like I just couldn't.
Death by cuteness is a thing.
Yes. Yes. There are also salamanders in that set, and a couple of the salamander sets that are out there
Mhm.
you can pick up, and they have also big flaming lizards and stuff.
Mhm.
You could probably use a Behir as a sub, but
Mhm.
the flavor of the Tlexotl is definitely an axolotl made of magma and the size of a barn. So, all right. So the next one is in the midst of, I'll try to say this, Manavarsha. And ran into a new thing that I hadn't had as a problem, because I thought several of these use djinn or genies, and I haven't really called that out because those are pretty common. But I wasn't aware that Marids, unless they are a big fishy ugly Marid, which there are, like that is a new trend for Marids to be very fishy people. But back in the
What's
day,
a
they were
Marid? What's a Marid?
sorry, yes, they are water genies.
Water genies.
And they're usually in older editions, and I think in this, because there is a new monster called a Riverine or a Riverine. I'm not sure how to say that. Like Undine's what it reminds me of. That is a large size water creature that is super babe, and the NPC that you interact with is a dude. So like I was looking for Marids that were humanoid looking. They're almost all girls. I managed to find, I think, one or two, and the one that I think is best. Let's see.
The My Mini Monster Mayhem one?
Yes. I think from their Element set.
Yeah. This is a really cool model. It is definitely like a genie in the middle of a whole bunch of flowing water all around them, and it's like white water. This is disturbed water, violent water. And dude's got abs.
Yeah.
And nipple rings.
And the guy in the adventure is probably in that lane, but this mini is something that was very difficult to find. So I was glad that a couple creators still had some, because usually if they are human like Marid, like I said, there's a tendency to make them big fish monsters lately,
right?
But the human like ones were all female, and so again, though, you could probably just change that in your adventure if you have a female and you don't want to print them to Skype. But he's a really cool mini, and he'd be a really fun challenge to paint. Let's move on. Okay, this is the one I was talking about planning. In Between the Tangled Roots, these start getting tons of monsters. We're not going to have time to talk about them all, but it has a Bakunawa, and this is a very specific dragon thing. And if you know specific mythologies from around the world, Clay Cyanide is the person who deep dives those a lot. And Clay Cyanide has a Bakunawa. However, currently, it is a loyalty incentive. So you will actually, I think, have to be subscribed for 3 months to get it. Now, I am just going to say Clay Cyanide is one of these Patreons that does a theme and a troop almost every month. I highly recommend, just if you want to build your collection, just sign up for the Patreon for 3 months and you get this guy. And this Bakuna, I will try to describe it. It is swirling mystical water. It's got a big orb that you're probably going to paint with a glow. I would probably do some diffuse under things, but it's a big serpentine dragon. Very, very cool, super flavorful. And this is like the exact monster from the adventure. You could not be more perfect. And
but it's a loyalty reward.
And this is, again, kind of one of those things you're going to have to cost value that. You could probably swap it out for some other dragon mini or whatever, but it is the cool exact thing. And Clay Cyanide oftentimes will do things where, like, hey, you're getting extra models, and I've had loyalty rewards, that I've got access to through things. But anyway, so I just wanted to point out, and sometimes maybe it's worth the wait, especially because you're going to probably get some really cool troops and things from the Patreon if you do that, and it's a very affordable Patreon.
Right.
So,
and I have issue with your suggestion for the Manticore.
Oh,
the Manticore is very cool. I like it. Okay, but there's already the best Manticore available.
Oh, okay.
So you have suggested Mammoth Factory's Manticore. It is a nice Manticore. I'm pulling it up on screen.
And he has a buddy, by the way, that is vertical. I just love this pose so much.
Yeah, it's a great pose. He's not not even hanging off his base. He's doing a good.
Yep. And there is another pose where it's flying and it's very vertical and you can use it in the closed things. But if you're using mana core, it's probably flying. So anyway, I want to hear your objection, and I'll tell you the other reason I went with that mini after your objection.
My objection is Artisan Guild already made the perfect Manticore.
Let's see it and describe it for our listeners.
Okay. It is a lion-headed tusk thing with the barbs. Like, it's the Manticore look. You've got the wings, you've got the lion head, you've got the horns, you've got the barb, and it's just got it's like chains on its arm that is broken off and it's like slinging backwards, and it's got this giant roaring over pose. I love this Manticore. I've printed it up. It's like I loved it so much that I printed it the day it came out.
This does not happen often, Param, but we disagree, and you're wrong.
Oh no.
If you look at that boy, he is a cool mini, and I love him. And I would make him into a demon because he does not have a manticore tail that flings spikes. He has a scorpion tail. Yeah. And if you're printing a mini, I think that's the one with the mammoth one. It actually is one of the few manticores that has a big, burly, spiky tail. And unfortunately, that picture cuts it off. You have to look at the side view to see it.
Yeah, I did see the cool spiky tail.
And so for me, it was just, I'm not a big representative weapons war gamer, but if I have a Manticore, it's got to have a big bushel of spiky tail. It's got to.
So I always thought the Manticore fired the spikes from its mane.
I've always assumed it was a tail fling.
Okay.
We could let people sound off, but we've got a couple more modules or adventures to go through.
Okay.
So
yeah.
We talked about that though. I'm just gonna say Night Sea Sucker is a cool one. It's got a lot of I think it was one of the ones that has the hag in it. But you need sharks, and I'm just warning you. There's some sharks out there, but it's very hard to get good just animal sharks. I have one or two that I would link in those notes. Print your monsters, and I would just print that and not put the writer on it if possible. There's a ton. In fact, Raging Heroes also has some great sharks, but they're intended to be writers. So if you buy them, it's going to probably be a little more expensive. I want to say a couple welcome packs for Patreons have sharks, but I didn't see very many of them for sale. So anyway, if you have a great shark mini and want to drop it in your comments, I'm here for it. Anyway, we will move on.
Lord of the Print has some really good standalone sharks.
I saw some of them, but I was a little worried about their length because Lord of the Print again does these awesome kinetic sculptures, but they're usually huge.
It is absolutely hanging off its base. Yeah,
okay.
That is not up for debate.
But that is a really good hammerhead. I wonder why that did not come up in the searches I was doing. I wonder if its tags are weird. But yeah, sharks. You're gonna need them for that one. Okay. Buried Dynasty has a lot of things in it. I'm just gonna call it the Ropers, and I'm gonna call out Duncan's Ropers because specifically he does something that I think more STL creators need to do, especially with monsters like this, because the Ropers are cool and they're scary. And if you're not familiar with the Roper, they're basically a stalactite that hides as a stalactite, and then it pops open and like tentacles and teeth and
tentacles. I have two Roper models from the D&D Minis line, and I love them and treasure them because they're stupid hard to find.
Yes. So you can print them out now and have as many as you want. But more importantly, it comes with a stalagmite mode. Stalagmite is down.
Good choice.
And that is so key with a monster like this because you can put it out as terrain on the board. It can be right there in front of your players, and then suddenly pop, it turns in. And you could paint them up. They could look very similar. It would be such a cool reveal to have all these little stalagmite mounds and suddenly pop. There's Ropers everywhere. That would be so intense. Yeah. And
I would definitely say to do this effectively, you're definitely going to need to use print out more than one of the stalagmite modes, a bunch of them, and use them before the reveal that it's a Roper. Terrain. Or else it can immediately, hey, why is it normally just a really bad spike drawn on their battle map, but this time it's a highly detailed thing you printed?
Yep. Sorry, Jason. I just saw you said, hey, people. What's that? You claim
P&D Mike. I literally painted up the AG Manticore this weekend. Got to side with Param here.
All right, fine. I'm still not hearing it. Okay, and then we'll get to Orchids of the Invisible Mountains. It is a big, crazy, far realm experience. It has all the loving monsters I love. There's beholders and aberrations, cloakers. You name it. I adore it. There are tons of good options for that. I I would say though the unique monster in it is the Whistler. And the
Whistler.
problem with the Whistler is
Okay.
it is described as kind of being multiphasic and wobbly and like stuttery, and
Mm-hmm.
to paint something like that is very difficult. And so what I recommend is finding. I actually put Village Hope's Flame Spirit down because if you painted it and did it like more misty,
Okay.
and it has that kind of indistinct head and weird, you could maybe get in the neighborhood of a visual representation, but it's just going to be a hard mini to make. Like if you just painted it in a still form, it would just look like maybe like a doppelganger or something, and I think it would be very boring, because it's supposed to be kind of like stuttering and weird and difficult to look at. But yeah, that's what
really
I
cool.
go with. I love Village's Hope. I should try to get them on the show. But just very super flavorful. I think there's a couple Steam monsters that also would probably be appropriate. I'm sure if I spent much more time going through Bestarium's like horror backlog, I could probably find something.
But you go out the other side with emotional damage.
Right, exactly. I'm also going to just throw out, in addition to all the aberrations and beholders, and there's so many cool beholder minis out. I'm not gonna say anything else about that. But this happens in a cultural setup that has tons of Thri-kreen, and so
those are not easy to find.
They're not. They weren't. But of course, Adam brought us a beautiful twin goddess, Thri-kreen, super cool. And then I think we've even mentioned him a couple episodes ago. Lord of the Prince. So okay, you're pulling up Adams. Adams isn't like a cool, classy adventurer. She's got like a trench coat. She's still all buggy. She has her multiple limbs, her antenna and everything. But twin goddess style, right? That is definitely like a cool PC looking vibe.
Right. Yeah.
And I like it, and it would definitely work for a couple of the NPCs. There is kind of maybe like you're gonna have to have that on the board. I'm not necessarily going to say you're going to stab it. I don't want to do spoilers. I think Lord of the Prince take on Thri-kreen is just fascinating. And you pull
these
them
look
up. These
truly alien. They look like bugs. They have the proportions are all off. Their weapons all match. They look like they could have come from Morrowind, which is always my favorite vibe.
But they also kind of vibe like John Carter to me a little bit, very space pulp, which is kind of perfect. But they have these big, long, feathery antenna and cool weapons. Right. But I'm going to just say, if you start paying attention to the weapons on these, they're very troop style to me. They have big, long swords and pole arms. I do not see a caster in the bunch of them. I don't see. So you're going to have some limited representation unless you do some conversion work.
Right. So, but they're available. This kit from Lord of the Prince is like 1,000 poses. So that's great. Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible value. And especially if you wanted to do a big battle scene where there were multiple Thri-kreen involved. And spoiler alert, thing lurking over my shoulder. And if you're listening to us, it's a Spelljammer box set. Spelljammer is also on the horizon. And the coolest thing about this, with the Concord crystals and everything, you could totally interact those two settings if you wanted. I am so jonesing to run like a big smash up of like Strixhaven and this and that. Yes, we also have that. I don't know if we have time to talk about it, but Across the Realms has a much more, I think, balanced Thri-kreen release.
Yeah, this looks like it's like straight from the cover art from Dark Sun.
Yes, it's very Dark Sunning for sure. Less Spelljammery. They're a little more
evil ant.
And the gear's a little more primitive in representation. Maybe also, if you're familiar with Dark Sun, it don't have metal, so there's a lot of the weapons look like they're made of chitin or stone.
Yeah, it's like Frazetta art.
Yeah, totally. I think we made it with a minute left. Those are my big recommendations. There are still tons more, and depending on how we polish this document up, I could probably drop a couple other there's a Displacer Beast and a couple other things.
Right. So so we will have this document available sometime soon with all these links in it, and including ones that I unfortunately forced Christen to skip because we are literally coming in skin of our teeth on time on this one. Yeah. I'm sorry, Christen, about that.
No, it's okay. I could clearly talk about this all day.
Yeah.
So.
So if you want like the full super list of links that Kristen put together, it is wonderful. And we definitely, if you like this kind of series, I kind of want to do a Ravenloft version of this. I've had that on my mind for a while,
Nice.
especially as I'm prepping that adventure to run it.
Yep.
If you do, let us know in the comments if this is the kind of series you would love, and if you have like something you want us to look into, especially like if there's like an adventure or a type of model that you're looking for and you want us to do the deep, we're going to find the old lore and the deep text, Kristen, let us know and we'll see about what we can do there. In the meantime, if you want more of this content and find this list when Kristen is got it ready, you can find this over at printyourgames.com. And if you want to, you can support us by giving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Well, we think we're 5 stars. It's up to you if you think we're 5 stars, but we would really appreciate those. Really help spread the word of the podcast. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. And of course at printyourgames.com. And if you want to, you can email us at podcast@printyourgames.com. And until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Christen Swords, also known as Seventh Master. And if you're not tired of me yet, you can find me on the TikToks. And don't forget your screen protector.
Bye, everybody.